is already done. And when we look at the outcomes, we have criminal referrals to the Hawks. And there's a civil recovery where a council is appointed for the recovery of at least 5.6 million. And administrative action, one former board member, membership withdrawn, and fine imposed by SAICA and SIU considering CIPC referrals against the company directors. And in terms of disciplinary, still here, we couldn't do any referrals because all the members left the employment of SAA. Then in terms of focus area number 3, we look at the logistics services, where we look at the bids and SCM irregularities. Here, the investigation is ongoing. Tender for logistics services value still to be determined. One company was awarded a tender, although their bids document seems to be non-responsive, seems not to have capacity to fulfill the bid specification. The decision to award this company was later amended. Instead of a new process, the board recommended that the bid be awarded to the supplier who had been providing the services contrary to the process. An investigation is ongoing. And in terms of the outcome, we have done criminal referrals to the Hawks, and we are to refer additional evidence of corruption, which mostly likely to be the entities or individual and one former official. In terms of the civil recovery, SIU is considering to set the contract aside on grounds of legality and possible recovery, whereby the quantification is ongoing. In administrative action, there's a possible referral of evidence against 4 former board members and former official of SAA and possible company directors. And in terms of disciplinary, all the members left. Focus area number 2, tire tender SCM and tender irregularities. Here, investigations ongoing. We're looking, the outcome is the non-compliance with the PFMA and the SCM policies and procedure, as well as the Treasury Regulation and Practice Note. Value of the contract is 218 million and 375 million. Then in terms of the outcome, we are looking at possibly a criminal referrals to be made, and SIU is considering to set the contract aside on grounds of legality and possible recovery, where currently we are doing the quantification. And administrative action is one former board member where the membership withdrawn and fine was imposed, and SIU is considering CIPC referrals against company directors, and disciplinary referrals could not be made because the member left. Focus area number 5, we're looking at component support services contract, where tender irregularity in awarding the component support bids and corruptive relationship between payments between third parties and SAA employee and board members. The finding here is that the SCM and tender processes were irregular. The value of the contract is between 1.2 billion and 1.8 billion. Payments of deposit amount, contrary to contract stipulation, indicate an irrevocable letter of credit. Other irregular payments made contrary to the stipulation of the contract. This amount are still being quantified by an accountant, and currently the amount is standing at 35 million. There's also corrupt payments between entities, third party, SAA and SAT employee, as well as board member. The flow of funds for all the related contracts are still being analyzed, as several bank statements were subpoenaed and currently being analyzed. In terms of civil litigation is to be instituted. The civil claim involved 2 legal firms as well. And in terms of criminal, there's possible criminal referrals of fraud, corruption, and facilitating of corrupt payment against plus minus 10%, including companies and individuals. And there's also civil litigation that is to be instituted, and there's a possible amount that is to be recovered exceeding 1 billion. And in terms of administrative action, there's also membership withdrawal and the fine imposed against one board member. And there's also possible referrals of evidence against former board members and company directors to CIPC, and refer evidence of misconduct against 3 attorneys, that is 2 firms, to the Legal Practice Council. And there was also no disciplinary action that could be taken because the members left. And focus area number 3 is paint tender, where we're looking at the tender irregularities. Here, the finding is that tender irregularities which include the non-adherence to compliance with the PFMA, SCM policy and treasury regulation, and the criminal referrals. The tender value was standing at 19.2 million. And in terms of the outcome, there's referrals which was made to the Hawks, and the referrals include allegation of corruption, which include entity, individual, and former official. In terms of disciplinary, we couldn't take any disciplinary action because the official left. The third focus area relates to swap transaction. Here it's a tender irregularities and contract non-compliance issues related to acquisition agreement of the 2002 sales and leaseback agreement, which relates to Airbus, the SAA swap transaction. Here the finding is that no proof of PDP or reimbursement to SAA in full or in part, the amounts of 824 million